If there is one character trait I would have to define that keeps showing up in modern day geniuses, it would be their ability to think on a long time horizon.
Can you tell me who this character is?
Honestly, I have my answers, but I love people's theories and conclusions on who he is and what it means and the message he's giving.
Or was it, did you have to really think about it?
I was thinking about it for a bit. I mean, it just wasn't, the vision wasn't there anymore, you know?
Yeah.
It was there, and then, you know, just like the music, it was getting really sad.
And I want to say, like I said before, the after hours are done and the dawn is coming.
Do you remember that one time when the late Steve Jobs announced a new revolutionary phone with essentially no buttons? Or when Elon Musk decided to invest the millions he made from PayPal into Tesla? Chances are you can't even remember a time when a touchscreen phone wasn't the standard, or when there was not a single electric car on the road. In hindsight, these modern day geniuses tend to make very controversial decisions, and today's argument is that The Weeknd is among those who is taking a similar risk for the benefit of his long-term vision as an artist by changing his stage name. So let's get into it.
And the Billboard Music Award goes to The Weeknd.
As of making this video, The Weeknd is the most streamed artist in the world. He has well over 100 million monthly listeners on Spotify and has broken his own record twice already. Having just completed a stadium tour in both the United States and Europe, I believe it is safe to say that The Weeknd, being already a household name in the music industry, is still on a massive trajectory of insane growth. So why? Why on earth would you want to destroy such a widely recognized name and basically burn up so much of the brand equity you have? That was the first question I asked myself when I heard Abel say the following in an interview with W Magazine. I'm going through a cathartic path right now. It's getting to a place and a time where I'm getting ready to close the Weeknd chapter. I'll still make music, maybe as Abel, maybe as The Weeknd, but I still want to kill The Weeknd, and I will, eventually. I'm definitely trying to shed that skin and be reborn. So me, being very interested in the reasoning behind such a major life and career-changing decision, had to take a deep dive. And this started off with the origin of The Weeknd. In order to understand where The Weeknd is heading, you have to know where he started. And he started in Scarborough, Toronto, Canada. Now, I won't bother you too much with the entire history of his career, as there are more and better in-depth videos on that topic. But still, there have been some major events during this time that should be mentioned. Starting off with where his name originated from. So his name is directly inspired from a darker period in his life when he left home one weekend and never came back. During this period, Abel was essentially homeless. He spent his nights on long metro rides and couch surfing whenever and wherever possible. Paired with this came the involvement of drugs and lots of partying. And this is where the persona of The Weeknd originates from. His dark experiences of his early days within Toronto, most of which are reflected on his debut mixtapes House of Balloons, Thursday and Echoes of Silence, together known by the masses as Trilogy. Coincidentally, I myself also got introduced to The Weeknd's music with Trilogy back in 2014. Funnily enough, I was able to dig up an old conversation I had about listening to The Weeknd. I referred to his music as sad or emotional. And overall, I think that's definitely the vibe the classic Trilogy album was giving off. It was just dark, unlike anything I've ever heard before. It was and still is so different from anything else. And having gone through a sort of tough period myself back then, I felt like I could relate to a lot of his stuff. And besides the fact that his music was simply good, I think a lot of others were in the same situation as I was. Which is one of the reasons Abel had a cult-like following earlier on in his career. Relatability. Now imagine that you grow out of this darker persona, even though you still have a massive cult-like fanbase that's attracted to your former self, or let's say the former expression of yourself. Would you still want to keep the same identity because that's what people know you for? Or would you embrace this new, reborn, enlightened version of yourself? See, Trilogy reflects who The Weeknd was, but not who he currently is. So, who is The Weeknd now? On January 10th, 2022, The Weeknd tweeted the following. I wonder, did you know you're experiencing a new trilogy? This tweet came right after he released the album Dawn FM on January 7th of 2022. Funnily enough, most people, including me, did not even notice that the Dawn FM story was part 2 of an ongoing trilogy. But looking back now, it makes so much sense. And I think this is where The Weeknd's true genius is starting to show, through the current story he's trying to tell to his audience. Now, a lot of storytelling in both After Hours and Dawn FM are up for interpretation, since Abel uses a lot of symbolism in his music videos. And as he said before during the rollout of his Rolling Stone video, he doesn't want to spoon feed his audience. This of course also applies to the After Hours till Dawn FM storyline. So I had to do some creative thinking paired with intensive Reddit research. And this is what I got out of it. In After Hours, we can visually see how the LA or Las Vegas lifestyle is taking a toll on his mental and physical well-being. He keeps showing up in bandages, which imply the damage that is being done by this rockstar lifestyle. The visual story starts off with him having the time of his life in Las Vegas with Metro Boomin as they gamble, mess around, and eventually lick a frog. This ends with him being killed in Your Eyes, and some fan theories suggest that this is where the story splits in two parts. His physical body gets revived while his soul remains trapped. Others, however, suggest that the whole After Hours story represents an endless loop that Abel is basically trapped in. The reasoning behind this is that the video clip of Snow Child ends exactly where the whole story starts, on the Las Vegas Strip. I personally think it is both, which means that the one version of him in purgatory, let's say his soul, is reliving an endless loop while his body is still living the life of the party in Las Vegas. To keep this story short and less complicated, let's focus on the side that directly ties into Dawn FM. At the end of the Snowchild music video, Abel ends at the desert before seeing his former self on the Las Vegas Strip. But this time, instead of arriving at the Strip again, Abel breaks out of this cycle. This is where the video clip of Take My Breath starts. Abel breaking out of the endless loop, which brings him to the flashy Las Vegas lifestyle. He's finally starting his journey towards the light. This light could symbolize a new beginning or perhaps a final judgment. It's as if he's in a sort of in-between space, neither here nor there, but again in a purgatory where he's given a chance to reflect, repent, or even reform. And this is exactly what Dawn FM is all about. It is the transition from The Weeknd to Abel Tesfaye. See, there's a reason that Phantom Regret is the last song on the album. It signifies that before Abel can fully transition into the next phase of his life, which is rumored to be called Afterlife, he must come to terms with his past mistakes and regrets. The outro advises Abel, and perhaps the listeners as well, to find peace with things once regretted and to take responsibility for past choices. The song suggests that it's only by letting go of these regrets that one can truly move forward. In essence, the song Phantom Regret is all about the idea that you are in control of your own happiness and peace. You decide your own destiny. This idea of self-acceptance and moving on is not just a message for Abel, but for anyone who is listening. It's a universal truth that resonates deeply, making Phantom Regret a fitting conclusion to the Dawn FM album. It leaves us with the notion that the journey to self-discovery and acceptance is ongoing, and that perhaps the next chapter for The Weeknd, or should we say Abel Tesfaye, will be one of enlightenment and newfound purpose. That is, in short, where we currently are in the story. Now bear in mind that After Hours released in 2020 and Dawn FM in 2022. This transition could very well take up half a decade, which again signifies the long-term vision for his career. The last video in the Dawn FM cinematic universe is the one of How Do I Make You Love Me. Just like the last one of the After Hours universe, which is Snow Child, it's animated instead of shot on camera. The most significant part of this clip is definitely the ending. As you just saw, the old man Abel dies off and out comes baby Abel, a reborn version of himself, his inner child, free from past regrets and mistakes his former self made. From this point on, it is not yet clear if Abel will be dropping the third album of the trilogy under The Weeknd or Abel Tesfaye. I personally think he will drop the album under his new name because of how the Dawn FM storyline ends. However, there are more reasons to believe that he has killed his old stage name already. For one, all his social media names, not usernames yet, have already been changed to Abel Tesfaye, whereas they would say The Weeknd before. However, this could also imply the transition to a new identity, which might not be fully complete yet. But at his last concert of Europe's After Hours Till Dawn tour, he said this. This was the last stop of the EU tour in London at the Wembley Stadium, so it makes sense to end this tour with such a statement, which also adds fuel to the fire that the transition is already complete. And also, while diving deeper into the symbolism of the tour, I realized that this is also the story he's trying to tell to his audience. You see, about 1 hour into his set, he finally takes off his mask and he's just happy. He just smiles and stares for a bit, taking the cheers from the audience in, and then follows up by just a beam of positive energy while interacting with the crowd. So at this point, I feel like you have the proper knowledge behind the storyline of his music and what's happening at his concerts. So why is this a genius move despite being so risky for him? First of all, it frees him from all past association he had with his style of music, which included lots of drugs, sex, and the overall persona of a toxic lover boy. As I mentioned earlier in this video, I myself got introduced to him as his music being sad and overall darker than any other artist I've listened to. Being free from this social stigma means even broader appeal to the masses. I mean, he already has the most monthly listeners on Spotify, but sky is truly the limit for him. Some people genuinely refuse to listen to his music because of the contents of his lyrics. So under his new identity, he can reach a whole new audience. Besides being free from all these associations, he's also free from his former self. He is not who he was, and this reflects his current persona. Yeah, I know it's a hard pill to swallow. People can actually change, which I believe he actually has. So now imagine being in the most positive state of mind you've had in years, if not a decade, while still being forced to make music that does not longer reflect who you are. Would that be worth it? I think not, because again, people change. And as I just told you, he's telling a full story which could likely take half a decade to complete to embrace this change in his career. This is very from, for example, Kanye West's approach, who just decided to go with Ye all of a sudden just because he felt like doing it. No, Abel's change is a slowly developing story and highly visual through music videos. And after investing time in understanding the full story, from my perspective, it makes more sense for him to change his name than to not go ahead with this change. Because, as one of his earlier supporters, I think this even keeps the OG fans from 2012 and 2013 mutually invested. These are the people that grew up with The Weeknd's persona being the toxic lover boy and might still associate with that type of music. However, these are also the people that take the time to fully understand Abel's storytelling through his music, which is why I think they will fully understand and support this transition. So, in the case of Abel losing his already established strong fanbase, I think the risk of rebranding is relatively low. His fans will surely understand and support it. Even though the risk is low, it is not zero. But still, even then I'd say it's well worth it for him to take the risk. He can finally make music which reflects who he currently is, instead of forcing himself back into negative thoughts to make music that his older audience craves from him. This could well possibly spark a new passion in other types of music he wants to make, free from previous constraints. Like, imagine Abel making a gospel album. I think it could do numbers, genuinely. Now, if you made it this far into the video, I'm gonna have to assume that you're a fan of Abel. So knowing what you now know about the transition he is currently in, what do you think? Especially if you still disagree with this rebranding, I would love to know why. And oh yeah, by the way, wait, hold up. Uncle Thanos is calling. Yo, what's up, Uncle?
Yo, cousin Jason. I'm just watching your video about The Weeknd changing his name. I love the t-shirt you're wearing.
I appreciate that. I actually gave this t-shirt to The Weeknd at his concert in Amsterdam, and he ended up wearing it the next day.
That is insane. You should share that story in a video.
Well, I actually did share the story in another video. You should check that one out next.
I will check it out. You made another t-shirt for Abel, right?
I actually did, yeah. Wait, let me grab it. So yeah, if your name happens to be Abel, this one's for you. For the rest, thank you for watching until the end.
Don't make me come for you. Subscribe right now.